What's up, y'all, and welcome to another video. Today I am going to do another news discussion. I don't really see this as being like a news channel or really a channel at all, but I do kind of want to chronicle some of my thoughts on some of these big game industry things going on, and I just felt like it was a almost necessary follow-up to the video I did last week where I discussed kind of Xbox's current market positioning and decisions that they are making as one of their key studios. Bethesda has made a really large video game announcement following all of this bad press from Microsoft. So I kind of wanted to prepare this as like a PowerPoint follow-up to the previous discussion, kind of discussing how does this factor into Microsoft's decisions and what does this mean for the future of Bethesda. I think it's worth discussing. That's not the button. There we go. So, an overview of what I'm going to cover. I will go over the press release for those that have not seen it. This will kind of act as like a general summary of the big points anyways. I'll kind of discuss why I think Bethesda has decided to make this announcement now. What do these Bethesda announcements mean for the future of Xbox? And then finally, what does this announcement and how it was announced mean for the future of like large game announcements? Because I think it's quite different than what we're used to in this industry. Okay, first off, the future of Fallout. This was, we're going to go through the press release. I'm going to note right off the bat that this was just a text press release with some images. I first consumed this via Instagram, of all places. This was kind of just sent to me via the algorithm, I guess, where I saw this post from Bethesda, just thinking it was anything else, any other Instagram post, but it turned out to have like such significant announcements that I wondered if it was like a fan account or something like that, because it just didn't seem like something that would be announced via a social media post, or I'm sure it also was accompanied with a general press release on their website, but in such an unceremonious way. And we'll get into that more in a little bit. But anyways, the first big section of the press release talks about the future of Fallout. What's going to happen with Fallout? Right off the bat, they are collaborating with this Obsidian. They make this very clear. Obsidian Entertainment, another Xbox studio, and Bethesda will be working together on a game. They provided a lot of Fallout imagery along with that slide, I guess, of their own presentation. So heavily implied that they'll be working on a Fallout game, but I guess not necessarily confirmed. Multiple Fallout video game remasters are in progress. This includes Fallout 3 in New Vegas. Surprisingly not like the original or 2. I think those would be really interesting to see remastered, but I'm not surprised at all that they're focused on Fallout 3 especially. That seems like the most logical game to remaster next for Bethesda. Fallout 76 is going to get a new season, so that's an important announcement because that means that game and that live service will be continuing. I don't really feel like that was super clear, especially considering that studio or the part of Bethesda that works on Fallout 76 was subject to pretty significant layoffs very recently. Not really my wheelhouse, but Fallout Shelter and the Fallout TV show, those are both going to continue. And then they even stated just in this press release / social media post that they are developing Fallout 5. That is a huge announcement. That is more or less just a sentence in a press release, which is fascinating to me. They also talk about the future of Elder Scrolls. They discuss that Elder Scrolls 6 is coming along nicely, that they are playing it every day, which to me indicates they're pretty far along in development, which they should be. This game has been in development forever, but it does indicate that it's actually coming along and is in a playable state, especially considering that they also have a pre-production team started on Fallout 5. That to me, it seems from my understanding that they only start doing that when their next tentpole game is nearing completion. So to me that indicates that Elder Scrolls 6 is probably within 1 to 2 years of release finally. Elder Scrolls Online will continue. This is relevant for all the same reasons this Fallout 76 part of the announcement was. Elder Scrolls Online was hit significantly. That part of the staff was hit significantly with layoffs. So I think them specifying that it's going to continue is important. But they did not provide a ton of detail on how or in what way ESO is going to continue. Certainly not to the same level that they did for Fallout 76. So might be more end-of-life support for ESO than true continuation. Why did Bethesda make this announcement now? That's a ton of information about upcoming projects that would normally be split up into a bunch of different announcements spread across multiple press conferences, accompanied with trailers. So why did they decide to do this now? I think it's really simple. Microsoft and Microsoft Games have received absolutely horrible press lately. The coverage of their layoffs, of their handling of this transition from Phil Spencer to Asha Sharma, all of it has been pretty negative. It started pretty positive, but they're just quick change from, hey, we're all about the gamer, to, hey, we're going to lay off all the gamers that work for us. Not literally all, but a significant portion of their staff, the studio staff. I mean, that was unsurprisingly taken very poorly by the gaming community at large. And so I think they just want some good press. They want some news coverage that isn't them selling and or firing people. And probably on a much smaller note, this does provide some clarification on where Bethesda is going with these franchises. I mean, a lot of these games have been rumored for a while, especially like the Fallout 3 remake / remaster. And so I would imagine maybe there was some news of some imminent leaks when it comes to some of these games. And so them maybe getting ahead of it. But I think the first point is by and large the reason they made it now. Is to get good press for Microsoft. So what does this mean for good old Asha Sharma and Xbox? I think this provides a lot of clarity, and it does seem that Xbox is definitely kind of minimizing their footprint within video games. I think they're going to be very focused on large franchises, and that's what they want their studios to be focused on. And I think they are more or less forcing this. Like, I don't believe that Obsidian's next game was going to be a Fallout-related property until a couple of weeks ago. I think that they were I think they were heavily rumored to be working on Avowed 2, maybe even more than rumored. And so, I think this is very much big Xbox stepping in and saying, hey, we want tentpole releases and we want those only. We're not really going to take many risks right now. Your game needs to be a hit, and please focus on the franchises that are guaranteed hits. This is sad. It's always good when studios are allowed to work on what they want to work on the most, because when people are passionate about what they're working on, it's much more likely that they're going to make something unique, something that's actually transformative for the video game industry. Frankly, it just seems like too much Fallout for one thing, which is why I chose this background. We're talking 2 Fallout remakes or remasters. Fallout 5 eventually, probably 5, 6, 7 years out, but Fallout 5 eventually, and then another Fallout project from Obsidian. That is probably too many Fallout games for my liking. So a little bit of a bummer there to me, especially personally. But I also just think it's a bummer for the video game industry, because it's always good to have a variety of games. So bad news for people that wanted to see another Pillars of Eternity. I think I put PoE, Path of Exile as more PoE, but you get what I'm saying. Pillars of Eternity, Avowed, these are franchises that I would love to see continue, and it just doesn't seem like they're going to anytime soon. Because it does seem that Xbox is very heavily involved in charting Bethesda's path forward. And then finally, what does this mean for video game announcements? I think probably the most fascinating part of this announcement to me was the method in which it was delivered. A social media post with images that have already been readily available for these games, so it's really just text, is shocking. A shocking way to acknowledge Elder Scrolls 6 for the first time in a long time, to announce that you're working on Fallout 5, to announce a Fallout 3 remake and a New Vegas remake and an Obsidian Fallout game. All of those announcements could have been press conference enders for something like this, background where Bethesda was putting on these press conferences at E3 when that was still a thing. These are substantial announcements, and to see them kind of truncated into just a small social media post is pretty wild. That all being said, I actually don't think this has any it doesn't lend any credence to the idea that like these announcements are dying off or aren't going to be a thing in the future. I think this is purely a decision made in light of the bad press that Microsoft and Xbox have been receiving. I don't necessarily think this has anything to do with the way that Bethesda wants to announce games and projects. I think that they very much would prefer to announce things in really close to when they're releasing, number one. They've made that very clear that that's their preference. And number two, with like a big fanfare, with like a maybe not a press conference, but a large scale announcement where somebody comes in, introduces the game, you get a big fat demo of the video game. It's definitely seemed that that's the way that Bethesda prefers to do things. I think that's the way that they're going to continue to do things. I think this was very much a directive from Microsoft saying, "Hey, we need you to provide clarity to your fans on what you're working on next." And so I think Bethesda cobbled together this page of announcements just to say, hey, look, we're still doing cool things, even if Microsoft is overseeing us. So I think that's kind of how we get to this announcement, and I do think big Bethesda press conferences or announcements of that nature will happen in the future. I think it's like the Game Awards or Summer Game Fest and these different things. So that's kind of my thoughts there. That's my thoughts on the announcements overall. I think it's good to see that Bethesda seems very healthy, and they're going to be continuing making great games. I think Bethesda, while Starfield was not necessarily great, they make good games, and I'm excited to play Elder Scrolls 6, especially when that comes out. It's a tentpole release, something that appeals to me personally. So I'm glad that the studio is healthy. I do think it is a bummer that Xbox and Microsoft seem to have such a stranglehold on both them and Obsidian and these awesome developers in controlling what they work on next. So that's kind of my closing thought. Those are my takeaways, and I hope to see you in the next video.